thanking first the community for their support on our collective efforts on our battle against opiates here in the Fargo-Moorhead area and the surrounding community. I'd also like to thank the media as well for helping us get the word out on this important issue to all the folks that are affected here locally. As we discussed at the Eyes Wide Open Community Forum, we need to approach this issue on a multifaceted front, meaning all stakeholders need to participate in fighting this battle, not just law enforcement, but healthcare, educators, treatment officials, faith-based organizations. Everybody in the community has to come forward and pitch in to fight this battle. We are on the enforcement side, of course, and that is our role in part in this effort. And on the enforcement side, we are making it clear, if you are selling opiates, in particular fentanyl, you will face federal prosecution, aggressive state prosecution in this battle. In our part of this equation, we've responded with somewhat of a new strategy to fight this new scourge that's hitting our streets and harming so many people. Last week we met collectively, all local, state, and federal law enforcement. There were somewhere around 80 to 100 agents and prosecutors discussing how we fight this battle on the enforcement side. And we came up with a strategy. It's essentially a 4-part strategy. And like any good strategy, we're not going to give all the details to the strategy, but we'll give an overview as to how we're going to fight this battle and how we're going to be successful. First of all, as I noted at the outset, we're going to send a strong message to the traffickers that come to our community. This will be a very unfavorable place to do business. We're going to work with the state and local narcotics officers in an effort to suppress the local street-level traffickers, meaning it's going to be uncomfortable to do business on the streets here. We're going to work with DEA and all the federal partners to work historical investigations like we often do to fight this battle, targeting the organizations from top to bottom and dismantling the entire organization. And make no mistake about it, if you sell substances that kill somebody or put somebody in a hospital, you are going to face federal prosecution and state prosecution as necessary. The final and fourth part of our strategy is to continue our efforts as a collective group. Continue our efforts that were started a week or so ago with the community forum Eyes Wide Open, to make sure that that isn't a one-time event, but that effort continues. We can't do this alone as law enforcement. We can't arrest our way out of it. We have to do this together. We will do our part on the enforcement side, but importantly, we view ourselves as partners with everybody else to help them as we work together. As we have done our part of the enforcement strategy, there's been several arrests recently. We're only going to discuss the charges and the names. Because it's an ongoing investigation, we're not going to discuss the details of the investigation because it's a very active investigation. As of last Friday, Chase Flintinger, Christian Harris, and Brandon Byer were arrested on federal charges. Conspiracy to distribute fentanyl. Maximum penalty is 20 years, $1 million fine. They all made their appearances last Friday in federal court and have other hearings which will be scheduled this week. These 3 defendants are presumed innocent, and these are just charges as outlined in the complaint. Previously, Greg Krutzinger was indicted and had a prior court appearance. I believe he remains detained. He too is presumed innocent. and these are simply charges. Finally, Tyrone Wilburn, who previously appeared on a complaint, was indicted of conspiracy to distribute controlled substances resulting in serious bodily injury. He has an upcoming court appearance on federal charges. He too remains with the presumption of innocence in this matter. There will be other arrests as it relates to the trafficking of fentanyl and fentanyl analogs. Despite this effort so far, we still remain concerned in this community about the distribution and consumption of opiates, in particular fentanyl and the fentanyl analogs. Parents have to talk to their kids. These substances are deadly and are still out on the streets. And we need to continue that effort to get the word out that these substances can and do kill people instantly. We're dealing with a different threat here in our community, and that's why law enforcement is dealing with this threat in a different way. Chief.
Thank you, Chris. When U.S. Attorney Chris Myers asked us to participate in this press conference with him, we all recognize the importance of the partnerships we have in this community. You'll see every law enforcement agency practically in this community here today representing, because we feel like this is a very important issue within our community. About 2 months ago, we started off with a press conference like this, identifying what we thought were the problems and the dangers of heroin and fentanyl. And we've had some overdoses in our community, and those overdoses have continued to happen. We've also had a public forum, which we hope to have followed with more public forums to educate our community and also get the healthcare community involved in this discussion also and present some options. Due to the current epidemic, or what I see as an epidemic of opiate abuse in our communities, I am reallocating 3 personnel within our department to our narcotics unit. Our narcotics unit currently has 4 narcotics detectives assigned to it, along with a 5th one that's part of the DEA task force. I'm adding another 3 additional people to that unit, at least temporarily, to help us get a hold of this epidemic and make some headway on some of the cases that we have developing. So that's what the Fargo Police Department is planning on doing in this partnership and continuing to work with the other law enforcement agencies.
I guess I don't have a whole lot more to add other than to emphasize the Cass County Sheriff's Office is 100% in, as we have been. Like Chief Todd and U.S. Attorney Myers have said, look around this room. You see every walk of law enforcement in this community. We're walking step together. We are going into our agencies and finding whatever resources we can to combat this at a time frame when we're getting budget cuts and everything else that are happening. So that tells you how important it is to us. And the reason is because we work for this community, and we see literally, I agree with Chief Todd, an epidemic coming at us like I don't think we've ever seen in the drug world before. And we either gonna chase it or we're gonna try to get on top of it. So it is a balanced attack. We have to treat the addicts. We have to look at a much bigger picture. But from our end of it as law enforcement, I can't back up more what U.S. Attorney Myers has said is if you're gonna deal, we're coming for you. And you're not gonna peddle your stuff here. So we're in, and I think as you can see by all of us here, we're gonna go give it every effort we have with the resources that we have to head this off. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I should note too, if I could, Birch Burdick couldn't be here today. He's, I think, at a commission meeting. I'm guessing he might want to rather be here. I'm just guessing. But his office was a big part of our meeting last week. As a matter of fact, he had, I think, 4 or 5 prosecutors at that meeting, and is in lockstep with our office. Right now, we have Matt Greenlee and Brett Chasky, along with myself, assigned to work these types of cases. Allocating basically 1/3 of our lawyers in the Fargo office to work on these cases. That gives you a sense of, when we're reallocating resources to fight this battle, it gives you a sense of the level of concern we have as law enforcement officials on this issue. We need to address this. and we are going to. As Sheriff Laney said, we're all in on this. Everybody in law enforcement has the same plan, the same perspective on this thing, and we will see success. Will we stop it? I don't know that we'll ever stop drug trafficking, but we're going to do our darndest to stop people going to the hospital and dying. So, thank you. Any questions?
You presented these 5 people. How big of the problem do you think these are?
I don't understand your question.
How big of the overall issue of opiates being in our region are these people supplying?
Well, I'm not going to speak to those individuals specifically because that comments upon the evidence or the role that those defendants have in these cases. Anybody that sells fentanyl or opiates could potentially kill somebody distributing their substances. I think we made that painfully clear in our community forums. And so again, these people are cloaked with the presumption of innocence, but this is a concern for us and we're going to address this concern.
How about rephrase, are a couple people just a small part of the problem, or do you think a couple people are supplying a larger amount that's causing these problems?
We don't know. If we knew, we could step down and say we're done. We're not done. There's other traffickers out there, and we have to get to work on it.
Do you
like
have,
I said, there will be other arrests.
do you have ages on these 5 or 6 individuals?
Yeah, we do. Brandon Byer is 5, 6, and 96. Flittiger is 12, 14, and 95. Harris, 9, 30, and 96.
And given those ages, do you think that they could be involved or somehow involved in how we're seeing fentanyl in our schools, being used in the schools?
I'm not going to comment or speculate upon any of that stuff. It gets into the facts of the case. You can read from the complaint what information we have available publicly, but
Okay.
that gets into the investigative phase.
Sure.
So.
Just for the average person out there who's trying to sort out, you hear about crisis and maybe they can't relate to it. How far do you think we have to go with this? I mean, how long of a fight do you think this will be?
I have no idea. It's affecting different parts of the country differently. You might talk to folks in South Dakota who aren't seeing the overdose volume that we are, but you talk to folks in West Virginia or Massachusetts, and they're fighting this battle every day, all day long, with people going to the hospital and dying. And so our job as law enforcement is to do the best that we can to stop it or stem the tide, so to speak. But we don't know what we don't know. And all we can do is address it the best we can with the resources we can. And I think collectively, we all realize we can't do this alone. And that's why we're taking the approach that we are, is we're going to fight this with the entire community and not just law enforcement.
Does the current state budget climate, does that limit your ability to do this? 10% cuts across the board, except for Department of Corrections and 2 other departments. Does that make this any more difficult for you guys?
We always face resource issues in law enforcement. It's been here for as long as we've all been in the law enforcement game, which is a long time, and it's always going to be there. And so what we do in law enforcement is simply take the resources we have and pool them with all of our partners and do the best that we can to fight this battle, and that's what we're going to do. So we're not going to sit here and complain that we don't have enough resources. We're going to do with what we have and do the best that we can and serve the public the best that we can. Would I like 10 more prosecutors? I would love it, but it's not going to happen. So.
Chief Todd, you currently have 4 people in the narcotics unit, and you're adding 3, so almost doubling that. How does that increase what that unit will do, and what do they do specifically?
Sure. I have 4 narcotics detectives and a 5th one that's assigned to the DEA task force. And we're going to add 3 additional spots temporarily over the summer. I'm going to vacate several spots within our department and try to job share some of those in order to put a focus on this heroin and fentanyl issue that we have within our department. And then what it equates to is caseloads. All our detectives carry caseloads, and when your caseloads get so high, it becomes difficult to manage those and be responsive on those. So we want to have a more mobile, quick to react narcotics team that also uses our street crimes team as a force multiplier. And they work with all the different narcotics detectives throughout this area, and of course our street crimes team is multi-jurisdictional, so we'll hopefully be able to tackle more cases that way.
And these 3 additional positions, those are detective positions, or are they just officers that can help with the caseload?
Those are detective and officer are the same rank.
Okay.
It's just where your assignment is within the department. So they will be narcotics detectives for this summer, and then we'll reassess after the summer and see where we go from there.
Is there kind of a hope with that reassessment at the end of the summer that this will be tackled by then?
Well, by then I'll know probably what my budget for 2017 is going to be, so we'll see what happens then. But I think all of us in this room would agree, this isn't just a law enforcement crisis, this is a healthcare crisis too. And if we don't step up as a team, both in the law enforcement world and the healthcare world, we're going to kind of face a tsunami of drug issues within our community here, of addiction and overdoses. Just for example, last week, I think Sunday and Monday, we had 4 overdoses that would have been fatal if Narcan and CPR had not been used. So that's how critical this situation is right now.
In these documents, I know you can't talk about these specific cases, but I understand there was criminal informant use. Is that a tactic that you're planning to use more frequently?
We always use informants.
We have for,
We always will,
always have.
right? And they're as important as the community in fighting this battle. So we're going to use all available tools that we have within the law to fight this battle. And we have a certain strategy addressing this problem, and we feel confident that the strategy is going to work. It's paid dividends within a few days already, but we have work to do, and we're going to do the best that we can, again, with our resources. And we have Jeff Harfords from DEA is here, the Marshal's here. We will bring to bear all the federal resources we can and fight this at the street level here in Fargo.
Chief, you remarked on the importance of Narcan. Is there any plans to have officers carry that drug?
You know, not at this time, because we have a full-time fire department and a very responsive ambulance service in Fargo. They're both carrying Narcan, and oftentimes we're at the same scene at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
We're CPR certified and AED trained, so we'll focus on that part, because often what opiate overdoses do is they depress the respiratory system. So the first most important thing to do, even before Narcan, is to maintain an airway and then supply respirations if necessary. And then Narcan then takes that depression off of the respiratory system and is an opiate blocker.
Okay.
So at this point in time, the police department is not going to do that. The fire and ambulance are going to do that.
Okay.
All of us for answering that, or just, does that answer your question?
Well, if there are plans in your department to do that, no?
Not in the
Okay.
field, but in the jail, yes.
In the jail, okay. Has that been something you've been seeing, is overdoses in the jail?
No, we have not seen an overdose in the jail yet, but to say that we're not extremely concerned that could happen would be a lie. So when you have inmates being brought in or people being booked in every single day, I mean, we search them from head to toe, we shower them up, we do what we have to do. But we've seen many different methods of trying to get it into the jail. And I want to emphasize that to bring and try to traffic narcotics into a correctional facility is a Class B felony, and we will charge it out, and we have charged it out. But what we are seeing is, because the addiction is so powerful, those coming in are trying to bring it in with them. And in a lot of cases, in most cases, we've been able to catch it. But is it a worry? Certainly. We can't go up into people's body cavities without a search warrant, and that's what's happening. And so, I mean, to say this is kind of, I mean, it's always been a worry in a correctional facility. I mean, it's no secret that's how people try things, but they're trying it regular. And so we've had to change up our entire game on how we try to find it, to find it, try to locate it. We're tossing cells regularly now. We're bringing canines in. We're going to continue to do that. Whatever we have to do to keep it out of there. Plus, we also have a work release program where people go in and out. So, I mean, we constantly have to be on our guard. To say we don't find it, but we find it often. Our other fear is if we have a deputy patting to somebody down and they come across a powder or they come across it, if they're exposed to it, they're gonna overdose within minutes. And so, both, the Narcan is going to be there, we're gonna have our deputies trained, we have medical staff that work in the jail from like 0700 in the morning till 10 PM at night. So we have kind of a different dynamic there, so we're gonna have it, both for if it happens with an inmate, but very much so if it happens to one of our deputies gets exposed.
And any time frame on that being used in the jail?
We're in the process right now of developing our agreement with our medical director, developing the protocols, and then we'll implement it in. So I would say it's high on our radar.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.